2026, the World Cup returns. The greatest stage on earth is once again preparing to light up. Every football devotee is turning their attention to 16 cities across North America, where 48 nations will battle across 108 matches to crown the rightful heir to the Golden Throne. People speak of Cristiano Ronaldo taking one last dance, of Kylian Mbappe driven by a hunger of redemption, of Lamine Yamal reigning atop Europe with the world at his feet. But perhaps you didn't come here for any of those names. You're here because of a genius slowly being forgotten amid the emotional yet indifferent current of time. The name that once made the entire world hold its breath with every touch of the ball now seems to echo only in old melodies and unanswered longing. So join us as we listen to those fading notes from the past and search for the answer to one question. Neymar, where have you gone? What were you doing at 17? For Neymar da Silva dos Santos Jr., that was the year he debuted for Santos and scored 14 goals in his very first professional season. Just 4 years later, at 21, that same young man had played over 200 matches and scored 136 goals, a number that would be unthinkable for virtually any other young talent on the planet. At Santos, he harvested success after success. The crowning moment came with the Copa Libertadores title in 2011, followed by the Puskás Award for the most beautiful goal of the year. Despite playing in the Brazilian League, yes, the Brazilian League, Neymar was already a king. Those magical feet needed no grand stage to shine. From Brazil to Europe, and even in Vietnam, people fell in love with him through YouTube highlights, dreaming of the day this wizard would one day bloom under the brightest lights in the world. That alone was enough to prove his boundless potential. But Brazil had grown too small. Neymar dreamed of Europe, of Barcelona, of playing alongside Xavi, Iniesta, and above all, Messi. People began to believe that the Samba Prince would one day stand shoulder to shoulder with Pelé and Ronaldinho to bring glory back to the Selecao. Arriving at Barcelona in 2013, Neymar carried nothing but ambition. After a tentative first season finding his footing, he quickly established himself as a true artist. Across the next 3 campaigns, he racked up nearly 100 goals and 61 assists. His combination with Messi and Suarez gave birth to the legendary MSN trio, a front 3 that terrorized defenses across the whole of Europe. But Neymar was never just a footballer. He was a living embodiment of Joga Bonito, the beautiful game in its purest form. He caressed the ball with samba-infused flair, stepovers, nutmegs, flicks, feints, techniques that walked the razor-thin line between breathtaking skill and pure showmanship. Yet, what truly set him apart was his ability to read every situation with pinpoint precision, knowing exactly where he was, where his teammates stood, how tall the defender was, whether their legs were open or closed. From that awareness, he chose the perfect move at the perfect moment. By the time anyone figured out what he was about to do, Neymar was already done, leaving a fallen defender in his wake and an explosion of noise ringing out from the stands. The peak arrived in 2015, when he helped Barcelona conquer the Champions League. finishing as joint top scorer with 10 goals and sealing the final with a decisive third. Then came the legendary remontada of 2017, that unforgettable night when Neymar scored twice in the final 3 minutes and orchestrated Sergi Roberto's last gasp finish to complete a stunning 6-1 comeback against PSG, pulling Barcelona back from the dead in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. Yet, no matter how brightly he shone, the world always found a way to call Messi's name louder. The seed of doubt began to take root. If he stayed, he would forever remain the prince beneath the shadow of the king. And so Neymar made his decision. He would leave to find his own throne. Paris welcomed him with the most expensive transfer in football history. He wanted to be the centerpiece, the focal point, the undisputed star of the show. But in the city of light, the ghost of injury began its relentless haunting. If at Barcelona, he missed just 148 days across 4 years, then in his first 2 seasons at PSG alone, he spent a staggering 257 days on the treatment table. He still conjured magical moments. He still lit up the Parc des Princes. He still drove PSG to the Champions League final in 2020, contributing to goals in almost every match, even without scoring directly from the quarterfinals onwards. But that night, in Lisbon, a dominant Bayern Munich, the same side that had torn apart his former club Barcelona 8-2 on their way to the title, stood between PSG and glory, and the dream slipped away. That final was a rare flicker of light in an otherwise dim chapter. Across season after season in Paris, injuries forced him to watch from the sidelines for hundreds of days at a time. In all those campaigns, he never once exceeded 22 league appearances. When you count every competition, he never surpassed 31 matches in a single season. 10 years in Europe, and that is how they ended. A whole decade of fierce battles, and all that remains of his finest hours is a single Champions League title from 2015 and 2 third-place Ballon d'Or finishes. The man standing above him with the 2 greatest players of the 21st century, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Those 2 titans took turns reshaping world football across an entire era, and overtaking them was a task close to impossible. In Paris, he was meant to be the star. Yet, the emergence of Kylian Mbappe gradually drew the world's gaze elsewhere. And in the end, his European journey closed not with the fairy tale he had imagined, but with a quiet, aching sense of what could have been. He was born into an era that was never truly his own. And his hunger to conquer faded. Neymar chose Saudi Arabia, joining Al Hilal for a retirement package fit for royalty. Upon arrival, he was welcomed like a living god. 60,000 devoted fans flooding the stadium for his unveiling. His teammates were no ordinary names either. Milinkovic-Savic, Neves, and the number 10, some argued, rivaled Messi himself, Salim Al-Dakhsari. And yes, he did win the Saudi Pro League in his first season, but injuries continued their relentless assault. And in the end, he managed just 3 appearances across the entire campaign. It is hard to say what he truly contributed to that title. What had to happen, happened. Less than 2 years after his grand arrival, Neymar packed his bags and left the land of sand and wind, leaving behind deep disappointment and the reputation of one of the most ill-fated transfers in history. Once again, he remained a prince, never a king. Home is where you return to, where you are sheltered and embraced after every stumble along the way. When his feet were worn and his energy spent, Neymar boarded the train back to where everything the world knew about him first began. 12 years after leaving, that familiar figure returned to Santos. Some laughed, some wept. But every Santos supporter opened their arms wide to welcome the boy who had once walked out their door. And fittingly, that same year, Santos had just earned promotion back to Brazil's top division after a season in the second tier. But the old Santos was gone. This was a newly promoted club, and Neymar would truly have to carry the weight on his shoulders. No one else but him. Santos hovered dangerously near the relegation zone throughout the season, and they needed a miracle to preserve their place in the top flight. Neymar was injured. A knee tendon problem disrupted his season multiple times, but he could not bring himself to watch his beloved home fall into the darkness of relegation. When the entire club placed its hope in his hands, the miracle arrived at precisely the right moment. Across the 7 most decisive matches of the season, he started 6 of them, captain's armband on his arm, reportedly playing through a torn meniscus that should have kept him out for the final 3 games. He chose loyalty over comfort, gritting through the pain to give everything he had. 4 goals and 1 assist that kept Santos up. Years ago, he wept on the day he left Santos. Now, the tears fell again. Tears of pain from injury, but also tears of pure joy at having fulfilled a sacred duty to the place that made him who he is. Now, let us look back at what his record with the Selecao tells us. A dominant Confederations Cup triumph in 2013, where he was named the best player of the tournament. A historic Olympic gold medal in 2016, won on home soil. Brazil's first ever in men's football, with Neymar as captain, leading his country to that milestone. These were moments of genuine glory. But at the World Cup, the stage that matters above all others, fate has seemed to take a cruel pleasure in tormenting him. In 2014, when an entire nation believed in the magic of the number 10, a serious injury in the quarterfinal brought his tears and ended his tournament permanently, leaving a rudderless Brazil to crumble against Germany in the most painful fashion imaginable. In 2018, a golden generation of Belgium ended Brazil's campaign on Russian soil. And in 2022, at 30 years old, he poured every last drop of his remaining prime into one final gamble. Yet, the stubborn veterans of Croatia had the final say, and a quarterfinal exit was all he could show for it. 3 attempts, 3 failures. At the highest stage of all, we were fortunate to witness a warrior who fought, scored, suffered, and gave everything. Yet fortune never once smiled his way. So, what chance does he have in 2026? By then, Neymar will be 34 years old, and everyone understands this World Cup represents the very last threshold keeping him connected to the game at his peak. More than 2 years without putting on a Brazil shirt, injuries battering him from Paris to the Middle East and now Santos, a knee that has been torn and repaired and tested beyond its limits. The desire to fight for Brazil has never dimmed. He has spoken of being willing to sacrifice himself for the Selecao far more readily than he did even to save Santos. But reality is unforgiving. A coach like Ancelotti, meticulous, unsentimental, unwilling to compromise on fitness, will always prioritize the sharpest and healthiest squad available. He will not hesitate to leave a beloved superstar at home if the body is not right. Can feet that have been through so much still dance under the crushing pressure of the world's greatest sporting event? The question has no clean answer, but one thing is certain: Neymar will fight for this with every breath he has left. This is the last chance to touch the dream he has chased his entire life. And that is why we still wait for him. Barcelona and PSG without Neymar can always find another star to fill the void. But Brazil without Neymar's soul, without the number 10 shirt ownerless, is a different kind of emptiness. The World Cup without that silhouette is a gap that is not so easy to accept. Because we do not watch football to observe pre-programmed machines executing their functions with cold precision. We watch to feel the breathless anticipation, that electric moment of suspended time before something extraordinary happens. We watch for the surprise, for the impossible, for the kind of magic that makes you forget everything else. Neymar is the living embodiment of that rare magic. He is the last great wandering artist, the one who dared to challenge all of Europe with a defiant smile and samba moves that left the whole world breathless. Perhaps in 2026, he will no longer be the fastest or the strongest, but he will be the one carrying the heart of an entire nation on his back. Neymar never truly left. He lives on in the nostalgia of everyone who ever fell helplessly in love with those magical feet and that effortlessly cool presence. He lives in the memory of the 19-year-old with the spiked hair at Santos, and in the memory of the artist who perorated through the defenses of the greatest clubs in the world with a smile that said he was born for exactly this. So, let us wait, because who knows, the final dance at the 2026 World Cup in North America will be the most beautiful love letter the Samba Prince has ever written. For us, for Brazil, for the beautiful game itself.